Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on Achieving World-Class CI Using Software Platforms, a hands-on guide using the Unified CI Maturity Model. This webinar is hosted by Commentelli, a highly regarded company with a rich history of over 2 decades of experience in market and competitive intelligence. Leading the session today is Jesper Martell, the CEO of Commentelli, and joining him is Luis Madureira, Chief Intelligence Officer at Uber Brands, a researcher, and a CI fellow. We are privileged to have their expertise and insights today. Without further ado, I will pass the controls over to our presenters.
Thank you so much. This is Jesper Martell, and we're going to be speaking today together with my good friend Luis about achieving world-class competitive intelligence. And an important component of this is, of course, software and technology, but as much as I hate to admit it, there are other components that are required to achieve world-class competitive intelligence as well. So we'll be talking about these different components. Luis has done a lot of research in this area, and he'll be sharing his expertise and experience, and I'll be trying to chip in as much as I can, keeping this more as a conversation rather than a presentation by Luis. So be prepared for that, Luis. Also encouraging all the participants to ask questions as we described using the chat function. Please at any time feel free to jump in to this conversation, and we're happy to do our best to answer. So with that, let's get started, Luis, and I'll leave the first introduction to you just to give a little bit of a background, and then we'll see where things go. I think that's always the most fun with these sessions with you, is that you don't really know where you end up. But let's start, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesper. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to be here with us. As Jesper said, so let's make this a conversation. Feel free to interrupt and ask questions. We'll have Dorian that will actually kind of take care of that for us, and she will actually kind of ask the questions if there are any questions. Okay, so very, very quickly, just to give a little bit of introduction and context to what we are going to talk about. So basically, I'll talk about the unified CI maturity model, which is a paper that I wrote back in 2023, so last year. But that was built on top of the definition of competitive intelligence. And this definition of competitive intelligence was actually scientifically developed and empirically validated. This means that I crunched and processed 820 definitions of CI and related concepts, and then using artificial intelligence to avoid biases and to avoid my subjectivity as a professional. I use artificial intelligence to crunch. We identified 5 dimensions, which I'm going to show you next, and they derived into or resulted into these definitions. So CI is the process, first dimension, and forward-looking practices, second dimension, used in producing knowledge, so the product, third dimension, about the competitive environment, the fourth dimension, and finally, with the purpose of improving organizational performance, which is actually kind of at the fifth dimension. So.
Sorry, Luis, I have a question already there.
Go.
I like this definition. We had a session about this a couple of months ago. Yes. I'm just curious to see. I mean, has this definition changed during the course of time, or do you think this definition? I mean, how fixed is this? Will this be the same in 3 years, or can you see this sort of changing in some way? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think that this is much is general enough not to be changed in the I would say in the near future. The 5 dimensions are there. So we actually kind of, I collected data from almost a century. So these 820 definitions cover the century of definitions that goes from scientific intelligence to marketing intelligence, business intelligence, you know, and so on and so forth. So I don't see this really changing. We can change some details if needed, but I don't see that this is actually kind of going to change. Actually, I would say this is the first time that we have an integrated definition that covers these 5 dimensions. So actually, it was really good that you asked that question, because this definition is actually the only one that covers these 5 dimensions. All the other 820 didn't cover at least one of those dimensions. Yeah. So and this is really important, because as we are going to talk about the maturity model, you need to make sure that you actually cover these 5 dimensions to, you know, to have a really solid foundation for your function. But like, you know, we'll get to that. I'm not sure. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. We can. I'll remember this forever now.
So you see, this is basically an integrated definition, and of course, for you to have an integrated execution, you need to leverage these 5 dimensions. Okay, so you need to starting here with a purpose, basically why. So you know, why does this organization needs intelligence? Yeah, and intelligence basically on what and how much. You know, how much of the scope are you going to cover? Okay, how much of the competitive environment are you going to cover to actually to come up with a purpose of, you know, increasing performance? Like, but what type of purpose, what type of performance are you looking for? You know, are you looking for market share? Are you looking for profit? Are you looking for a brand? Are you looking for international development? These are all metrics of performance, you know. So then you have the practice, and the practice is basically when, how, and who is going actually kind of, you know, to focus on this purview to improve the performance. Okay, so where are you based? What is the structure? What are the policies? What is the culture that you need to make? Do you have a data-driven culture, for example? Do you have a data-driven decision-making culture established? And then you have the process, which is basically, you know, what we generally call the intelligence cycle. So basically the activities that you need to pursue in order to then lead us to knowledge, which is basically the product. And a very important, you know, highlight here, the reason why I have knowledge is we need to act on intelligence, but we need that intelligence to be so good that it will transform into knowledge in the future. But you cannot wait for that to happen. You need to act when you have the intelligence. So if you have the hypothesis, the insight that two of your competitors are going to merge, you cannot expect or wait until they merge in order to do something. So you need to act on the intelligence, on the insight, and then you need, of course, this insight to be true. Otherwise, you're going to be making decisions based on wrong assumptions. Okay, so this is basically the 5 dimensions. And what I really want to highlight here is that you need to leverage basically all of them to actually to have a really strong foundation for your function. If you have any questions, interrupt me, okay? So this is, you know, I know that this is basically a word wall, but this is actually shows how much do we cover when we talk about competitive intelligence. Okay, so these are the 5 dimensions here on the top. I think that you, let me see if I can do a pointer here so you can actually kind of see it better. So we have the 5 dimensions here on the top that I just mentioned, and then of course you have 8 subdimensions, and then you have like 16 subdimensions, and then you have all these aspects that you need to address. Okay, so basically what I'm showing here is the competitive intelligence model. So what is in the scope of CI and what is out of the scope of CI. So for you to define competitive intelligence, you need to address these 5 dimensions and all these things. So for example, some of the definitions, previous definitions, they didn't cover, for example, the internal environment. So you need to cover it, otherwise you're not actually doing competitive intelligence, because competitive intelligence addresses the whole competitive environment, and your company is actually part of the competitive environment, is part of the market. So you need to address this. So this was like a lot of thought. And as I said, this was validated by 61 experts around the world. And I know that some of them are actually kind of attending this webinar, like Andrew Burgess, for example, which was one of the persons that I interviewed and, checked this with all the 61 experts worldwide from different cohorts, different geographies. Actually, we cover the whole world to make sure that this was solid. So taking us into the topic of the day, once we have this definition, which is scientific and validated, we can actually kind of, I used it to integrate all the other competitive intelligence maturity models that existed before. And we are talking about 14. So this was this paper that I done in 2023 here. And that, I integrated all of them. And again, there were, I think, two models that covered the 5 dimensions, but they didn't cover all the different aspects that we have in here. Okay. So sorry. So this is actually kind of also something important, is to make sure that if you want to measure the or thoroughly measure and accurately measure your level of maturity, you also need to cover these aspects. So you need to make sure that they are covered and they do address them, and so you can measure them, and then of course you can also manage them. So basically, if you don't measure them, you cannot manage them, and you need to manage them to actually to develop your function. So this was one of the key, I would say, key drivers that actually made me start using maturity models when I was actually kind of setting up the CI function at Heineken, was exactly that. So to see where I am compared to the other companies, and then see where I could improve. Okay.
And
So
how would you measure that? How do you find out where you are in these 5 different stages?
So again, that is a really good question, and this is something that we still need to work on. But of course, you have these stages. So these stages are the standard stages when you have any maturity model. So in the paper, you have exactly kind of what what is each of the stages, in standard ways, and then you need to apply them to see where you are for each of the aspects. What would be the next step now is actually create a validated scale, meaning a validated set of questions that then we can use to measure exactly where we are. Okay, so this is actually kind of the next step in my research, but this is the framework that already allows us to see, because the definition of incomplete, okay, you got it, is very easy. Initial as well, and manage, and so on. But you have all these definitions in the paper, and you know exactly what do they mean. Okay, so what you want to get to is you want to get this optimized kind of a version, and you see that these 5 stages, and this is the reason why these are the levels, the standard levels, is that they are also a little bit dynamic. Okay, because optimize, what means optimized today might not mean what is optimized tomorrow. So the model actually kind of evolves with the aspects. Let's say. Okay.
And did you see? I mean, it looks like most of the models contain 5 steps or stages, or is that always the case? And do you feel that you have to go through all of them one by one, or can you jump back and forth between these stages?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I can actually show you the average of the so this is the one. I have all the papers here in case there's any question that I need to address. So I have them here. So so what you see here, stage 6,
Exactly,
5,
okay.
3,
Okay,
5,
so
3, 3, so and so on. And I even have the average, I believe, here. So average levels 3.9. Okay, so on average, there were four levels,
Yeah.
which is not that different from these. If especially if you make if 0 is incomplete, so it's basically in existence. So you you end up with 5 stages. So there was 3.9. So that this is like, but most good or at least the ones that I really used, they were all 5 stages.
And do you think, I mean, can someone do you have to go through all the different stages? Is that part of the process, or do you think you can go like from stage 2 to stage 4 and skip stage 3? Or have you seen those? Any examples of that, or do you think it's necessary to really go through all of these?
So there's 2 parts to your answer. The first one is, of course, you can jump if you go fast. Okay, so you will not jump. You will go through them
really fast.
But exactly, but you're going to them in a faster way. So when you measure. Imagine that in 1 year you actually go very fast. You will actually jump from from 0 into, for example, 3, because if the performance is like you have imagine that you have 3 KPIs of performance. So you have a specific market share, or you want to grow your market share by X, or you want to achieve X market share. You want to grow by X, and you want to be in X countries. Okay, so if you're already tackling those objectives, and you go from 0 to those objectives already, so probably you'll just like at least you already measure them. So if you measure them, you would be on stage 4. So in that sense, you can say that you can jump. Now, a very, very important thing on maturity models is that you want to go stage by stage when it comes to aspects. So you don't want to be in world-class level or optimized in performance, and you don't want to be in culture like in stage number 0 or 1. So that would be almost impossible. So that's why I say there's two parts to your question.
No, and that was my second part, really. Because you have these 5 dimensions here, the P's. Can you be sort of in one stage in one of these areas, like I don't know, people or process or product, but in another stage, or how much do these have to go hand in hand, so to speak? These 5.
Okay, yeah. So I would say avoid at all costs to be, in stage 5 in one, in stage 0 in another. Actually, you will not be able to do that. So for you to actually to get to stage 5, it's impossible to get stage 5 on performance if you don't have the culture in place. That would be impossible if you don't have a structure, if you don't have the tools, if you don't have the CI platform that will actually integrate all those all those aspects of the competitive environment, and then you don't cover the scope. You see where I'm going? So all of these 5 Ps, although they are mutually exclusive, meaning you can actually kind of divide them, so they are different things. They are complementary. So the purpose goes with the purview, because if my scope is to just cover the market, that of course condition my performance. My performance can be only on the market. If I want a holistic performance on market, but also on brand, and also on people, and also on, if we go for the triple bottom line, then it's impossible to do that with a proper purview, because you cannot go with the triple bottom line if you are not measuring, for example, society, and if you're not measuring, for example, the stakeholders, the customers, and the consumers, and so
and I think that's our experience at Commentelli as well. I mean, we are very focused on technology, but we talk about technology, information, and people. It's just 3, but if you don't have all 3 of them, if you don't have the right information and the right people, it doesn't matter how good your technology platform is, it won't succeed anyway. So that's also our experience, is that you need to have all of these components in place together, and they have to develop together.
Yeah, and if I might just throw something into the equation as well. So if you, for example, use the design thinking mindset, which is another paper that I used and proposed as the mindset for for CI, you have here basically kind of the need, and the need comes from the stakeholders. Okay, then you have the technology. Okay, so the technology is what allows you to satisfy the needs to cover this area here, and then you have the business here. So sorry about my drawing, which is not not fabulous, but you know, the business actually kind of makes sense of the technology, or uses the technology, or leverages the technology to satisfy those needs, which then actually kind of gives you the money.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, it's the same thing as you were just saying. You know, even if you have the information, if you don't have the right technology to leverage the information, you are not going to develop the intelligence.
No.
And if you don't have the people to actually, you know, to build on top of that technology and to use that technology, then of course you're not going to have the intelligence as well. And you know, you're not going to make good decisions. So people is going to be angry, and you know, you are basically on this what you want to do is you want to be here, and this is the design thinking mindset here in the middle.
Yeah. No, but I think that's an important conclusion, is that you can't just start with just people or just information or just technology. You have to combine them all. And you can't do them one after the other. You have to do them gradually together.
And to be honest, to actually to go fast, so you were asking if we can actually jump from stage 0 to stage 4. To do that, you actually need to move in parallel. So you need to move, you know, a block by block. So you need to move all the dimensions more or less on the same time. So this will actually make your progress much quicker than if you try to do just one, you know. But you know, it's impossible. You get somewhere here, you get the blockage, and you cannot move forward. I'm doing a lot of
no, but it's
rubbish
good.
here,
Good.
but I hope that
I'm impressed with your drawing skills.
So
but say that you were at stage 0 incomplete, or you're just starting out, and you're new with competitive intelligence, and you have this model, and I mean, there's a lot to do, so many things. It might be a bit overwhelming if you are new, and you have to have. Where would you start?
Yeah. So that is the perfect segue for the next slide. So and this is my last slide, and then we can just talk. We can go exactly. We can go back and forward, and I have some backup slides. I was trying to anticipate the some questions and to see what we can talk about. So where should I start? So that was the question. So always start with why. You know, I'm looking like Simon Sinek now, but always start with why. Why? Because if you don't know where you're going, you know, like it's impossible. Like, you know, you need to really understand. You know, and this was the design that I was just doing before. Although this is like another one. This is not the design thinking one. But basically, what we're trying to do here is, we need to understand what are the needs of the organization, okay? And before even going into the key intelligence topics and key intelligence questions, you need to understand the why of those key intelligence topics and questions, okay? So most people, if you are in the military, for example, you don't wait, sorry. You are expected to receive a brief, and then you go look for the insights, for the data, transform into information, and then understand it, and then come up with intelligence. Okay. In business, that's not the case. You cannot do this, and sometimes you even need to help the organization to identify the topics. You know, you should be the expert on the competitive environment. So you are competitive. You know, competitiveness, that's your area. So you need to actually to help, and if you do that, I will guarantee you that you have a place at the board, or at the board level, or reporting to the board, because that's as strategic as it can get. But you need to do that, and you need to be able to do that. Okay, so then we can discuss in other webinar tools to do that, and to identify opportunities and threats in one page and all that stuff. Okay, but you need to do this, and you need to understand. You know, you need to help even the organization understand what they need and why they need it. Okay, so imagine I want to go international. So my mission here is to for example, Heineken. Let's go for Heineken, which I think pretty much everyone knows the product. And, you know, Mr. Heineken always wanted to have the most international beer in the world. So, you know, you start with a good why. So if that's the case, you know, you want to be as in much countries as possible. So, you know, you already know that market intelligence is going to be the major focus of your CI function. So you need to start with that. And once you start with that, everything becomes, you know,
much easier.
Suddenly very, very easy. Yeah. Because you know exactly. So if you go into the second, so these, by the way, these are the implementation frameworks, what you have in here. And these are also part of this paper. So you have the maturity model, and you have exactly how to implement the maturity, or to actually to implement your function and develop that. So if you know the why, so you are looking for this part here, which is what you can offer that the stakeholders want and that competitors cannot give you, because the competitors actually kind of, you know, stop here. So you want to competitive intelligence is going to allow you to move this circle here towards this circle here, so you can actually kind of overlap the stakeholder needs. And I'm talking about stakeholders, so customers, consumers, employees, the society, government, and so on and so forth. But again, let's assume the Heineken example. So then if market is your key focus, then of course you need to be focusing on this triangle here, which is you and your competitors, the consumer or customer, and the product. Of course, you cannot just be oblivious of the external environment and the macro environment, which is the pestle. So basically political, economical, social, technological, environment, legal. But your focus, you know exactly what it is. It's like, you know, it's the location where you sell your products, yeah, to the customers and consumers. And then once you have that, it's much easier to know exactly where you start. You know, you already have your key intelligence topics defined. Yeah. And probably there are already questions that are coming because there's lack of, for example, intelligence here. So you see, you don't need to start here. You might actually kind of go and identify key intelligence topics here, but because of the past, you might already have some, you know, some gaps, some intelligence gaps that you need to address. And, you know, and then like once you know exactly the activities that you need to perform, you can actually then and go see, oh, now I can tailor my team to this. I know exactly why I need a CI platform, because otherwise I will not be able to actually to get all that information from all those markets and all those stakeholders.
To the right people.
Exactly. And then finally, you know, once you have the process in place and you have, you know, the practice in place, then it's much easier to know exactly how to get to the wisdom, you know. And this is like, this is not the intelligence cycle, this is the intelligence life cycle. So it means it's the life cycle of data. When you start with data and you convert this into information, and then into insight, and then into intelligence, and then it converts into knowledge, and then finally into wisdom, which is going to be converted in the future into data. So this is like a major contribution of this intelligence life cycle that we developed for this paper, because most people are familiar with the data, information, knowledge, and wisdom pyramid. Okay, and this is like this has a major shortcoming, which is once you get to the wisdom, what would you do? Like, would you stay there? It doesn't make sense. So you need to use wisdom back as new data to go into higher order intelligence.
I think, I mean, when you put it out like this, it looks very reasonable and logical, and it's the right way to do it. But what would you, I don't know if you've seen this, but where is the biggest sort of point of failure? Why don't people succeed in doing this? Where do they, like, you know, meet the roadblocks?
When you mean doing this is like establishing their OCI functions.
Yeah. why don't they reach the stage 5, or where does it sort of stop, and why do you think that? Because many people start this journey, and we see lots of examples of that as well, and people are, you know, enthusiastic and let's do this, and then it's sort of they come to stage 3, 4, and then it just dies, or it sort of fades away. And what do you think is the main reason for that?
Yeah, so I would say that I'm a little bit biased here, okay? But
Yeah.
I attribute that failing and that failure most of the times as people do not actually use the five dimensions. So let me give you an example. I'm a really good analyst, but I fail in selling my insights to the board. Yeah. So where are you failing here? You are failing on the process, but you are also failing on the internal sell-in, because probably, like, imagine you are not, you don't have your role defined, or you are not very good at emotional intelligence, and you don't really know how to navigate the office politics. You know, it's not enough to have a really nice process. It's not enough to have a really nice tool. You need to, again, it's exactly the point that we're discussing here. So you need to move these together, because if you don't move these together, what is going to happen is you're going to have some successes, but those are not sustainable. So I would say that moving in parallel, that's the reason for sustained success when it comes to both implementing a CI function and managing that CI function to take it to the next level. So otherwise you'll go here, you know, and then like you are doing a really great job, but then you miss one thing. So you don't have the CI platform, which allows you to develop early warning, because you don't have all the insights integrated, and of course something is going to miss to you. So, you know, I'm talking about, you know, the purpose, and I'm talking about, for example, the process, okay, and even the practices, because you also use that on the practices.
No, and I kind of liked where you started as well. I think that I'm just thinking some of our cases where it has failed is perhaps because they haven't clearly defined the why. What is the purpose of this tool, and who is the target group, and who are we actually serving? And if that is very unclear, then no one is going to be, you know, 100% satisfied. And if they're not satisfied, you're not providing value, then it sort of dies out after a while.
Yeah. And for example, you should first know the why. You should first define the key intelligence topics and questions. But again, you also need to integrate these with the next one, which is, you know, imagine if your why again is market expansion, you know, and if you are starting to focus on scenario planning,
and it's mismatch.
Exactly. You know, this is really the point. So although I have these, you know, from top to bottom, I think that this is like, you know, you should start here. This gives you, you know, gives you a framework for you to tackle, but be very aware that, you know, this like needs to move, you know, in block as well.
And you mentioned, I just wanted to ask you, see if you have any thoughts on that. I mean, as you go through these steps, it's important to show some sort of success. Look at what we have accomplished, and this. Do you have any, especially in the early stages, any like examples of? I mean, this is a good proof of success of the CI program. What should you focus on, sort of in stage 1, 2, and 3, like to prove that this has actual value?
Okay. So I can give you some examples even of my own experience. So when I set up the CI function in Heineken back in Portugal, so I started in Portugal, and one of the reasons that that we were so successful was mainly two. The first one is because we know exactly what we were tackling, and this was again, I would say, luck, common sense. I just like started by asking everyone, what do they need? and then integrating all of that, and then guarantee that everyone was aligned with that, that the board knew exactly what I was working on, but not just the board, but also the manager, the directors, the managers, and even, you know, the people who were kind of pretty much kind of focusing on operational issues. So, you know, everyone knew exactly what to expect from me, and, you know, they know what I was working on and all that stuff. The second one was, I was reporting directly to the CEO, and that was one of the things that I made as a requirement at the beginning. I said, only if I'm going to report to you, and like he was hiring me. So, and he said, no, it's like to report to me. And of course, because of that, the culture, the intelligence culture, because like he was using, so if he was hiring me, was of course to use what I was doing, and that showed a clear sign to the organization, you know. So why am I telling all these stories? Because this makes us, like, you know, move very, very fast and in block throughout this. So what would be the success criteria, for example? Okay, so imagine on stage I would say 2, when you say you are managed. Okay, so you are managing the key intelligence topics. So you are not a firefighter. You are not responding to the requests, not the needs, the requests of the organization. And why? Because we did the work at the beginning, and they know exactly, you know, I had a list, I can show you the list still today of, I think it was 200, almost like 300 questions. And then I prioritized with an algorithm. So basically I said, like, you know, what are the things that I can, what are the low-hanging fruit, and what are the things that the quick successes that I can do, but also what are the most strategic things that I can do at the beginning. Okay, and this was, you know, this is critical. So this shows
and that's
you
where you started, like you delivered something that were the low-hanging fruits. And
yes. So, but my point, my most important point here is to show you that I was managing the key intelligence topics. I was not being managed by the organization. I was actually managing the CI function and saying, okay, these are all the questions that you need to know. Okay, then I prioritize them, you know, and know exactly what were the strategic ones, what were the priority ones, because I prioritize them through the strategic pillars of our strategy. Okay, and then I was managing that. And once I finish one, I would communicate it in the right time. Sometimes I finished, I had the analysis, but I didn't send it right away. But I would just only send it when I knew that they are going to need that information. Okay, so managing this is like, you know, I would say you are here. Okay, and then you go into a way that you start to measuring. So, you know, how much time did I actually kind of took? How can I, and then you go into a way that you say, okay, let's optimize this. So how can I optimize the time that goes from me identifying the key intelligence topic and how I do it to the point where I can actually kind of develop the insight that you need. I know exactly is the insight that you need because I measured that before. You know, I know that it's good. And then, you know, I shorten the time to market. So just to, you know, just like to throw something here in the between. So after 2.5 years, we were on the world-class CI level by one of the CI maturity models that I respected the most, which was from Comay and Prescott, because it was really, really comprehensive and with a lot of questions. It had 9 dimensions. We have just, you know, we have 5, they have 9. Go, sorry, you want to ask something?
No, I think you mentioned 2.5 years. So I mean, that leads me to a question that I had as well. I mean, based on your experience and the different models, how much time and resources do you think it takes to go from to start and then reach world class, and what does that depend on?
So I was expecting your question, and I think, yeah, I have some things in here that I can show you. So I can show you this. So this was the Comay and Prescott model. And you see here, so for example, in green, this is where you are normally when you are in the first year. Okay, so the average, and this was, I believe it was like 150 companies worldwide. Okay, so you should be around here, and the dimensions, you have them here. So strategic significance, the dimension 2 is integration, this is culture, HR, resource, so on. Okay, and then you see as you go along, the average starts to move. Okay, you can sometimes you even see like the back and forth, as exactly as you're saying. So what makes functions go more mature and then come back, and you can see them here. But you see that like in 2.5 years, you should be only around, I would say kind of a 40-50%, okay, of the full dimension. And in 2.5 years, we were pretty much on the 90 or 80. And the only thing that we didn't have was resources. So we were, in terms of tools, we were actually falling behind. And this point here was exactly the reasoning that I used with my boss to say, we need a platform, because I cannot move forward if I don't have a CI platform as a tool, because this is one it's me. I have interns, I have a person on my team. This is growing, this is good. But if you want me to cover the whole competitive environment and start looking into the future, we definitely need a platform, because without that, I'm not being able to actually to get rid of all the nitty-gritty jobs and selling files back and forward, and very, very, very difficult to communicate with my peers. So I need that stuff. So I think that this answers pretty much kind of your answer, and actually on a visual term, which is basically the point. Normally, to go from 0 to world-class level, you take around between, I would say 10 years. That would be the average.
No, but so it's not a quick fix.
No.
It's not something that you just do these things. This will take time, and depending, of course, on the size of the organization and things like that.
Time, money, resources.
But it's interesting to see how you could use this as well, the maturity model, to actually provide arguments for getting more resources, and for why you should do this, and what it is that you need as well.
Because if you don't do that, if you don't have a measurement, a number, because you can come in here and you can say, okay, I am in stage 2. And the world, the best companies, let's do this here. So imagine that this is the world-class level. So world-class level, most companies are here. I'm just going to put and in terms of purview, they are covering the full scope. In terms of the practices, I might be here, and the process, process is a little bit easier, but the product is still missing, for example. Okay, they are not getting intelligence, and they are not getting a foresight. They are just like getting intelligence on the short term, for example. Okay, so you can see this is the line for the world-class level, I would say, companies. And if you say I'm here, then you can say, okay, guys, we need to talk about purpose. I need to understand better the purpose. If you are here, you can say, okay, they can actually say to you and make you accountable and say, look, you are not covering the environment that you need, that we need you to cover. So you need to improve on that. And you can also say, okay, to go from here to here, I would need process. I would need tools, for example. I would need practices. Like I imagine that you are here on the practices. To go here, I need a CI platform that allows me, for example, to structure, to productize my CI function, and to actually be able to network both the insights, but also to collect more information from sales and from R&D, and from and also to make this available and to support innovation, and all the stuff that we do.
Great. I have a bunch of more questions. I think this is fascinating, especially the how you have derived to this as well. But I thought we would see if there are any questions from the audience, and maybe let them in as well. If not, I'm happy to continue. But please, if you have questions, feel free to ask in the chat function.
We don't have any currently. So maybe Jesper, if you want to ask one more, maybe.
I can ask 10 more
Jesper,
questions.
either we are being very, very boring, or we are being like extraordinary. Because
no.
and I'm being really, really clear about my explanations.
Yeah, no one has left
I
yet.
hope it's the
So
second.
they are still there. And I was a bit fascinated as well because you started talking about a little bit about roles as well. Can you expand a little bit more perhaps on that? I mean, what roles are required to reach world class? You mentioned that you had, for example, a good executive sponsor, and you were the director with a mandate. But are there any other roles that you think are important in this journey?
Yeah. So let me just put this here, and that actually kind of so this is basically my presentation on the dimensions. Okay. So this is like what you have in the paper, and I was trying to get to here exactly. Okay. So just for it's easier for us to have the discussion with the things in front of us. So roles, like we're talking about policies and capabilities. Okay, so let's talk about capabilities first, because I think this is the most straightforward to discuss on this. So roles, you need to have someone who collects the information. Yeah, that is a role by itself, especially if you're talking about OSINT, and especially if you are talking this together and integrated with UMINT. So, like I don't do collection normally. I ask someone to do the collection for me, because if I'm not doing collection all the time, I'm not going to be a good collector, especially in human intelligence. In OSINT, you always have your tricks. I have my own toolbox. I apply the tools, and it goes. But
there's someone like information specialists or people who know sources.
Exactly. But now you have a problem, Jesper, because you have not in OSINT, you have information overload, you have data overload, because you have so much information available that you need a data scientist and data scientist, so a scientist to just focus on data, to actually to clean the data, to convert the data into information, so you can actually even start thinking about putting that into an artificial intelligence platform that then applies the algorithm that takes you, into some form of insight. And then you need an analyst. And the analyst, and this is another role, which is like the guy who actually picks all of that stuff and that uses his brain to make, even connect the outliers, not just the average kind of a thing that the artificial intelligence does, because what basically artificial intelligence does is classification, and calculates the averages, like they exclude the outliers most of the times. But you need the human intelligence and the human brain to actually to pick up all those early signals, the outliers that most probably are going to be the most valuable data points, and that normally artificial intelligence throws away. So if everyone all the rage about ChatGPT, be careful, because that just averages like your insights. It does not expand your insights. It's not going to give you most probably the next big thing. Is not going to give you the early signal that's going to make you really kind of out compete on the market. So be careful about that. And again, I'm a fan of artificial intelligence, so I'm not actually kind of
but I'm counting that I mean, you need some sort of an executive sponsor, you need someone who drives this, like a director, you need you said like a data scientist, or you need an information specialist, you need analysts.
I'm going step by step,
I'm just summarizing.
Once you have the analyst, you still need someone to communicate those insights, because you can come to the best insights in the world. If you are not able to convey those insights into the decision maker will not believe you, will not understand you, and will not act on that. So this is one of the biggest I would say blockers, and you were asking about blockers before, on the success of competitive intelligence. You
need like a communicator.
Like you are not like, and even like, and you see that I put here communication. I didn't put dissemination. So dissemination is like you don't disseminate, like, you communicate, because if you disseminate, people will not going to use it because it's another newsletter on their inbox, which you know exactly what you do with newsletters. I don't need to tell you that. Yeah. So that's another one. Then you need a corporate, how can I say this? Corporate relations, a corporate internal relations role, which is.
Tell me more about that. Yeah.
Okay, so it's the person who can actually sells in so it's the internal marketing of CI, if you want.
Okay.
So you can call that a corporate relations. You can call that a marketeer, an internal marketeer, internal sales, whatever you want to call it. But you need some kind of role. You need to perform that role. So I'm thinking about the roles I needed to perform on that. Yeah. We talked about the data. We don't even talk what was before that, which is the researcher. So the guy who actually kind of is researching kind of a these in the beginning. So the research kind of development kind of contact. And then you need a manager. So you need a manager who manages the team of collection, the team of the whole thing. And then you need you go through all levels. You can have the director, which actually kind of oversees this whole thing and allocates the resources and makes sure that everything is functioning according and to the timeline. And for example, I had the luck to go through all these steps and even get to the board. So I was on the board. And when you get there, then things are much easier on one side and much difficult on the other, because then you are a support, but you are also a threat to other people on the board.
No, and now you mentioned many roles, but I think also you'll see in many organizations that it's not one person per role. Sometimes you have different roles that are being done by the same individual.
By the same part, yeah. So for example, commercial officer as the sales and the marketing.
Exactly. Yeah. Great. Well, we only have a couple of more minutes. Time flies, and I think we can probably expand on this, and we'll probably do more webinars on this topic going forward as well. But if there are any I have one final question for you, unless there are any questions from the audience.
I think you're good, Jesper.
In that case, if you go back to the maturity model again, and you drew sort of this sort of what you would say is a world-class company, which is sort of mostly in stage 4, stage 3. To be
a truly one, it would be stage 5 all the way.
Yeah, exactly. And that was what I was interested in. Have you ever seen has anyone ever reached this magical level? Do you have any examples of sort of what it can look like if you reach that final stage?
Yeah, that is a really great question. So what I told you was that in 2.5 years we got to the world-class level. Okay. So so this was in 2010, 11. We started the function in December 2007. I was hired. 2008, I had my first kind of a big kind of a delivery. And then we go from there. And 2010, 11, we were basically on the starting here 4 or 5. So how does that look like? It's good. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So you start being prepared for the future. You are actually kind of thinking more on the future than actually what is going on now. And I can give you actually 2 examples. So the first example was in Heineken. So we got there and basically I started thinking about the future. So this is when I thought and started thinking about SMINT. So SMINT is social market intelligence. And basically this is like CI in real time, because what I thought was the only way to get better is to shorten the time to insight, or in this case, the time to intelligence, right? So like if I know exactly how, if I diminish the time, I know exactly the things like when they are going to happen, and then I'm going to be more adaptive to the environment, and I can actually deal with pretty much everything. On top of I'm actually kind of looking forward. So I know more or less what can happen, and then I'm monitoring in real time what is happening, and I can see in which direction I'm going in. Okay, so this was the first glimpse I had about the world-class CI. The second one was when I actually left Heineken because of this, because they didn't want to give me more resources to do this in real time. So basically, I left. I set up my own company, or I actually reignited my own company, which I did before, and I started kind of developing this system, and I ended up implementing this system for a global player. I'm talking about, when I say global, is really global, and this is one of the top 10 of Forbes companies. Okay, and in 3 years, when we actually kind of implemented this system, in 3 years, we were never surprised. And we got to a point where we could predict some things with 4 years in advance. And some of the really key things we could actually predict with 6 months in advance, some things 8. Some things you knew 1 week before, but like, again, we were never surprised. But I never thought that would be possible, to be honest. But we managed to do that. That doesn't mean that on the 4th year we will not be surprised 3 times. But during that time, at least, and the time that we actually kind of had this thing running, we were never surprised. And that, I would say, is what I can give about my experience.
Yeah, and I like that. It sort of takes us back to the very first slide. The definition as well is that CI. You mentioned being prepared for the future and forward-looking, and sort of never being surprised. If you can reach that level, then you have really succeeded.
So I would say, just let me show you one thing here, which I think is very important, that most people might not realize when they see this, is that I show you, this is the practice here in the middle. This is the process, the processes, not the process, the processes. So all the activities that you need to do. And then you see on the outer circle, you have present, but you also have past and you have future. Okay. So, and this again, this has no arrows, because this is a continuum. Yeah, you need to understand the past to be able to understand the present, so you can actually even understand what the future might look like.
Exactly.
And most people don't really understand this. So, like, we don't talk as much as we should with foresight people. We don't talk as much as we should with futures people. We don't talk as much as we should as with library people, because you need to store. You have it here, you have the storage here, and you have to, so you can use it when you need, because it's only when you integrate all of these moving parts that you actually can understand what the future
before. Exactly.
What the future can bring you.
I know we're just about at time, but we did have one final question squeezed in. So from Frederick. Do you see any different approach to the maturity model as it progresses if you're in a state agency? And then the second part of that is when you have
like a government agency.
So when you have a mixed role, both business and an official role / authority role.
So what was the second part? The first one I understood. Sorry, the second one?
When you have a mixed role, both business and an official role / authority role.
Okay, I think I understood both questions. If I don't, I'm happy actually to reformulate. So to the first one is, I would say they might be a little bit different, on the sense that, for example, what I was explaining about the key intelligence topics is like, you might actually kind of have a slightly different process there, but I would say 90% to 95% applies. I would not be I would be happy to implement these in a national institutional country, if you want, developing CI and measure the CI we do. The French have this concept called intelligence économique. I was actually talking to someone even last week in France exactly about that. And I would say that you can use this for intelligence économique with no problem at all. Although I just integrated 14 different maturity models, and all of those, the criteria that I used was they should be about competitive intelligence. So this applies for competitive intelligence, but I would say that you can easily translate these into a governmental kind of a approach to intelligence, and for competitive intelligence and for intelligence economic, for sure. I would say, 95%. The second question was if you have a role both of a executioner and also as a director. Okay, so in that sense, this is even more important because you'll see, and this is actually kind of an integrate. So you'll see what you need to direct, how to allocate resources throughout these 5 dimensions and all these aspects. But you also will see, you'll put yourself onto the other shoes and see, what do I need to do? What organizational practices do I need to have? What capabilities, what individual and what organizational capabilities do I need? Because, the organization needs to learn, but the individual also needs to learn new skills. So that's called, in terms of companies, you call that dynamic capabilities. So this is the concept, it's the meta competency of actually kind of learning new skills, and organizational learning, and then adapting and so on and so forth. But also the individual, needs this. So I would say that you can use these. It's just you need to look to it from a different angle. So either one, you use these and say, like, I'm going to check these and see, am I doing this? If I'm an operational kind of an executional role, and if I'm on a director role, I need to kind of come from the top and say, look, how much money am I going to put on purpose? How much money do I going to put on purview? How much effort, how much time how am I going to allocate my team? How am I going to structure my team to actually kind of to perform exactly. So, to get to the purpose.
And thanks, Luis. I think that whole question is almost worth a whole webinar in itself. And I've noted lots of things that we can continue talking about, but unfortunately, time is up for today. So thank you so much for your insights and for your research as well, just reaching to this point. I think it's amazing. And with that, I think we will conclude for today.
Yeah, sounds great. Happy to, and thank you very much for everyone that attended. Thank you, and also for the invitation to be here.
Thanks, and
Thanks, Luis.
we'll be back again.